Hare Krishna, good morning. Hopefully I can be heard this morning. I hope you're hearing me, dear devotees. I'm privileged once again to offer something in the way of Srimad Bhagavatam class this morning, and hopefully it will be something useful. And also, please, any corrections or comments, or as you guys know, I'm new at this, but I just ask you to help me and know that I'm also a participant in Srimad Bhagavatam class this morning, so I came also to learn. Thank you. Yes, I did. That's problem. Okay. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Raja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Raja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Raja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Raja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Last for the blessings. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Devam Vita Swaminiti Namane Pachari Purva Daksham Cha Bhaktachara Pravinata Paradatapi Karunyum Yasya Save Chatir Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivanta Swamiti Iti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravana Pacharini Nirvisesha Sunyavadi Pashyata Desya Dharini. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. This morning we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 18, the prayers of the residents of Jambudvip, verse 4. Srimad Bhagavatam. Vadanti Vishvam Kavayahasma Narvasram Pasyanti Chadhyad Madvido Vipashitaha Tatapi Muyanti Tavaja Mayaya Suvishmitam Krityam Ajam Nato Smitam. Word for word translation. Vedanti, they say authoritatively, Vishvam, the entire material creation, Kavayaha, the great learned sages, Sma, certainly, Nashvaram, perishable, Pashyanti, they see in trance, Cha also, Adhyatma Vidaha, who have realized spiritual knowledge, Vipashitaha, very learned scholars, Tatapi, still, Muyanti, become illusioned, Tava, your, Aja, O unborn one, Mayaya, by the illusory energy, Suvishmitam, most wonderful, Krityam, activity, Ajam, unto the supreme unborn one, Nataha Asmi, I offer my obeisances, Tam, unto him. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation, O unborn one, learned Vedic scholars who are advanced in spiritual knowledge certainly know that this material world is perishable, as do other logicians and philosophers. In trance, they realize the factual position of this world, and they preach the truth as well. Yet even they are sometimes bewildered by your illusory energy. This is your own wonderful pastime. Therefore, I can understand that your illusory energy is very wonderful, and I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Purport. Not only does the illusory energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead act on the conditioned soul within this material world, but sometimes it also acts on the most advanced learned scholars who factually know the constitutional position of this material world through realization. As soon as someone thinks, I am this material body, ahamameti, and everything in relationship with this material body is mine, he is an illusion, moha. This illusion, caused by the material energy, acts especially on the conditioned souls, but it sometimes also acts on liberated souls as well. A liberated soul is a person who has sufficient knowledge of this material world and is therefore unattached to the bodily conception of life. But because of association with the modes of material nature for a very long time, even liberated souls sometimes become captivated by the illusory energy due to inattentiveness in the transcendental position. Therefore, Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 7:14, Mam evaye prapadyante mayam etam tarantite. Only those who surrender unto me can overcome the influence of the material energy. Therefore, no one should think of himself as a liberated person immune to the influence of Maya. Everyone should very cautiously execute devotional service by rigidly following regulative principles. Thus, he will remain fixed at the lotus feet of the Lord. Otherwise, a little inattention will create havoc. We have already seen an example of this in the case of Maharaj Bharat. Maharaj Bharat was undoubtedly a great devotee, but because he turned his attention slightly toward a small deer, he had to suffer 2 more births, one as a deer and another as the Brahmana Jad Bharat. Afterward, he was liberated and went back home, back to Godhead. The Lord is always prepared to excuse his devotee, but if a devotee takes advantage of the Lord's leniency and purposefully commits mistakes again and again, the Lord will certainly punish him by letting him fall down into the clutches of the illusory energy. In other words, theoretical knowledge acquired by studying the Vedas is insufficient to protect one from the clutches of Maya. One must strongly adhere to the lotus feet of the Lord in devotional service. Then one's position is secure. Om Gyantimirandasya Gnanjananshilakaya Chaksharuvatam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupakadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvatam Savarutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitamscha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagapate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute. Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Krishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Panchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namah. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So, in reading this, and I just want to read the last part of the purport one more time because it is just so striking. The Lord is always prepared to excuse his devotee, but if a devotee takes advantage of the Lord's leniency and purposefully commits mistakes again and again, the Lord will certainly punish him by letting him fall down into the clutches of the illusory energy. In other words, theoretical knowledge acquired by studying the Vedas is insufficient to protect one from the clutches of Maya. One must strongly adhere to the lotus feet of the Lord in devotional service. Then one's position is secure. So what I did first, because I'm a fan of knowing what words mean, is just really look at some of the words and finding the definitions that really matched up with what Srila Prabhupada is telling us in this particular purport. Because I thought in the translation, the illusory energy, this is a wonderful pastime, and the illusory energy is very wonderful. And in this day and age, people use wonderful and awesome and amazing, like just, saying it's a nice thing. But in this verse, wonderful, it's amazing, astonishing. It inspires great admiration, apprehension, or fear, because the illusory energy is Krishna's energy, and therefore it's divine. And his pastimes are always divine, and so always inspiring and awesome, literally. And then I looked at, well, it says being an association for a liberated soul to be an association over a long time with the material energy. And we say, we're associating or, an association with the devotees. And I just thought we say association a lot, we throw it around, but association really does mean to be linked with or in community with. And if you're in this material world, you are in some way going to have some linkage or some association with the material energy. And then what does it mean to be captivated by something? So the liberated soul may become captivated through inattentiveness to the transcendental position. And to be captivated by something or someone is to be charmed and attracted and controlled by that thing or that person. So captivation, it sounds like being captured, exactly what it is, to be controlled by something. And then inattentiveness is just simply distraction from something due to a preoccupation of the mind with something else. And it can be a failure to appreciate routines and to address details. So the primary form of deception that Maya uses to bewilder conditioned souls is this concept of aham mamati, or I am this body, and everything in relationship with this body is my own. And it's like almost a given characteristic of a conditioned soul. And you can hear it even the way that just basic language that people use. People don't say the house I live in or the house I'm blessed to live in. They say my house. They don't say the children I've been blessed to bear and to raise as humans. They say my kids. And so it's just almost a natural way that conditioned souls are in the world. But then what about liberated souls? And in this purport, Srila Prabhupada gives us some very simple outlines of the characteristics of a liberated soul. So the first is that they're going to have knowledge of the absolute truth and of this material world that's acceptable in both quality and quantity to free them of this bodily concept of I and mine. So it's not just that they know it kind of lightly or they read a little bit about it. They know this. They realize this. The second is that they adhere strictly to regulative principles. The third is that they're conscientious and consistent in performing both sadhana and seva. And then the fourth is that they demonstrate in real time the four pillars of a true religion: truthfulness, mercy, austerity, and charity demonstrated by helping others to revive their Krishna consciousness. And those four pillars come from Canto 12, Chapter 3, and Text 18. So then you think about these. This is high. This is light years from where I'm sitting right now. And I thought, well, how could such a self-realized soul or a devotee, great devotee of the Lord, possibly fall down from such a state of grace? And again, it's clearly written to us in the purport, and I'm going to just read that part again, where it says, because of association with the modes of material nature for a very long time, even liberated souls sometimes become captivated by the illusory energy due to inattentiveness in the transcendental position. Therefore, Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 7:14, Mam evaye prapadyante, mayam etam taranti te. And I want to read that verse directly from Bhagavad Gita, the translation. And this is again Bhagavad Gita, and this is the 7th chapter, the 14th verse, and this is the translation. This divine energy of mine, consisting of the three modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome, but those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. And then I'd like to just share a little bit from the purport. And this brought to mind about it being wonderful, the illusory energy. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has innumerable energies, and all these energies are divine. Although the living entities are part of his energies and therefore divine, due to contact with material energy, their original superior power is covered. Being thus covered by material energy, one cannot possibly overcome its influence. And then another part of the purport, being conducted by divine will, material nature, although inferior, acts so wonderfully in the construction and destruction of the cosmic manifestation. And then a final part of the reading from the purport, another meaning of guna is rope. It is to be understood that the conditioned soul is tightly tied by the ropes of illusion. A man bound by the hands and feet cannot free himself. He must be helped by a person who is unbound. Because the bound cannot help the bound, the rescuer must be liberated. Therefore, only Lord Krishna, or his bona fide representative, the spiritual master, can release the conditioned soul. Without such superior help, one cannot be freed from the bondage of material nature. So that's a little bit about how a liberated soul might fall down. But what might that look like for somebody like me, a neophyte devotee? Well, for me, it's a lot simpler. It can be as simple as just being linked with conditioned souls beyond what's necessary to maintain my existence and welfare, or in the process of preaching to them. And I've talked to you before about my feuding neighbors, and I've only lived here for 3 years, and they've been at this feud for the whole time over, honestly, what even a conditioned soul shouldn't consider their own, over parking spaces on a public street. And it has gotten so extreme that one parks all of his work vehicles right up to the edge of the driveway that the other spent thousands of dollars to make wider, so there'd be less space that's public for this other person to park. And I say that because they're both good neighbors of mine. And by good neighbors, I mean that one of them knows, for example, that my husband has neurological problems. And if it snows here, he's out. First thing, he's snow blowing his property and ours, so that we might not have to struggle with that. The other one is a contractor, and we were having a problem with one of our appliances, and my husband just mentioned it to him in passing, and he came over with a crew and fixed it and was like, no, please, I don't want anything for it. It's a privilege to be a help to neighbors. So this is what they look like in real time also, while at the same time they're engaged in this horrible feud. And sometimes I'm outside working in the yard or doing whatever, and I'll just run across one of them and stop and say hello. And within 2 seconds of, hi, how are you? Or how's the weather? Then they say, yo, this guy, and I have learned that I can't entertain that conversation in any way. I can't even listen to it, because if I listen to it, I become contaminated. So what I do is I usually say, oh, let me stop you. I really find that kindness and courtesy and civility are the best way to get along with anybody. And I don't really like to hear anything bad about any of my neighbors. And I prefer not to have that conversation, because even if I stand there and I don't open my mouth and I think I'm not participating, if I allow it to go on, I'm in association with it, and I'm going to be covered in mud, literally, by the time I walk away from that conversation. So for me also, inattentiveness to sadhana or seva because of preoccupation with something else can be as simple for me as just getting distracted by the day-to-day requirements of my family life in a way that disrupts the routines of my devotional service. And, I was working on this class yesterday. It is about, I don't know, 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and I'm trying to pull it all together and hopefully have something useful. And I remembered, oh, I have a bill to pay online because it's due today. And if I don't do it the day before, if I try to do it tomorrow, it'll probably go in a day late. So I go online, stop what I'm doing, distraction. I go online and I'm just going to pay the bill really quickly, just get it done, get back to this. And then I notice there's this erroneous charge on the statement. And now I have a choice, because now I'm like, well, what is this? And now I'm getting pulled in. And then I look on the, on the side, the little write-ups on the side on the website, and it says, we're open. If you need help, we're open on Saturdays until, 7 p.m. And I'm like, maybe I should follow up on this. But now I have a choice, and I have to remember, what is my primary purpose? I'm working on a class to offer to the Lord, to my spiritual master, to the devotees tomorrow. I don't have time for this. I probably shouldn't even have gotten on here right now to try and pay this bill. But I had to get off. I mean, it's not life or death. The charge will be there. The people will be there Tuesday, because Monday's a holiday. But I have time to debate that and deal with it. But that was not the time, because it could easily have gotten in the way and taken me down the rabbit hole of customer service. And I would not have been doing the first and most important thing, which is Srimad Bhagavatam, reading, learning, sharing. And then for me, finally, it can be forgetting that my only defense against being charmed and controlled by the illusory energy is to take shelter of the Lord and his bona fide representative, my spiritual master. And I'd just like to quickly read something from Bhagavad Gita. It is the 7th chapter and the 40th verse. And I'm just going to read the translation, which says, in this endeavor, there is no loss or diminution, and a little advancement on this path can protect one from the most dangerous type of fear. And then also, Bhagavad Gita 7:14. So I'm just going to read that for you. So basically, I'd like to now just finish with the final points of the purport. And what Srila Prabhupada has said in the final points of the purport again are that everyone should very cautiously execute devotional service by rigidly following regulative principles. Thus he will remain fixed at the lotus feet of the Lord. Otherwise, a little inattention will create havoc. And what I just read was Krishna's words, again, stating that in this endeavor, the path of bhakti, there's no loss or diminution, and a little advancement on the path can protect one from the most dangerous type of fear. And Srila Prabhupada in the purport is giving us the exact opposite. He's saying, and a little inattention can wreak havoc. And so why this coming back to this whole point of inattention? Because it's a very important point. And a little inattention, what does that look like? Well, in the Christian Bible, in Galatians, the book of Galatians, chapter 5:9, there's a verse that says, a little yeast works through the whole batch of dough. And if any of you bake, you start out with this tiny little ball, you mix this flour, you put in, the water, you put in a little baking soda, whatever. And then you put compared to what the rest of the ingredients are, you put a little, like maybe a teaspoon or two of activated yeast. And then you cover this tiny little ball and you come back like an hour later and it's 3 times as big because the yeast has worked its way through all of that dough and it's changed it. And so when he talks about a little inattention, he's saying that just a little slackening, okay? So maybe just a little slackening in chanting my rounds. Maybe today it's overwhelming. I just can't get to it. Isn't like, maybe 12 or 13 rounds enough today? Won't Krishna overlook that? A little bit of progress on this path, won't that be enough? Because that's how the mind can go crazy and distort things when it's captivated by the illusory energy. And it's like, no, my spiritual master told me you can always go forward in your job. You can chant more rounds, but never fewer, never fewer. Maybe I indulge in a little bit of negative thinking. Or yesterday, Devdas was talking about lamentation without it serving a purpose. Just, woe is me, poor me, it's always me. Or he was talking yesterday too about like being caught up in material endeavors, like going shopping at the mall or online, just staying online. And I looked at a song that I knew from, the early 80s by a group called Sweet Honey in the Rock. And the idea in the song is it talks about how you might go to Sears or Macy's or wherever and buy a blouse for 20% discount, but you don't think about the fact that this started way in the oil fields of Venezuela for people who were working for $6 a day to get this oil to America, where DuPont makes it into this synthetic fiber, where it goes back to, Haiti and these poor people who are basically enslaved. Sew your blouse, and then it comes back, to America, and I'm going to go buy this blouse. And the end of the song says, are my hands clean? That's a little inattention. It's willfully not looking at what I'm practicing and then telling myself that it's okay. Or maybe a little gossip, a little fault finding, little constructive criticism because I'm trying to help you. That's a little inattention, and that's a little bit of yeast that will permeate through all of the dough. And so becoming distracted in this way is like a weed that will choke my bhakti kripa. And sometimes what can actually seem good can be the enemy of what is truly best, of the path of bhakti. And I can give you an example of that in my life from my garden. So when I started gardening again up here, I said, I'm going to plant these herbs and I'm going to plant them around the vegetables because these herbs, some of them have the properties of like, repelling things that would really prey on the plants. So I planted in a row, mint, lavender, oregano, and then at the end, sage. And the mint's just thriving and the sage is thriving down here. And the oregano and the lavender are in the middle, like they're just dying. And I'm like, what's going on? I don't know. So then the mint's just going wild. It's just going. And I said, I need to really dig this mint up and like move it over to another bed because it's just taken over. So I'm digging it up. And in the process, I find that under the ground, where I can't even see it happening, the roots of this mint are choking this lavender and reaching for and choking this oregano to death. So the mint was a good thing. It's a wonderful herb. I love to cook with it. It was preventing some of these white moths and things. They don't like it. They don't like the smell of it, I guess, from getting on my leafy things. But at the same time, underground, it was choking some other things that I wanted to thrive. So a little inattention, because if I had taken the time to read up all of the properties of mint or to ask someone who plants it, I might have known that. Once I learned this year, I did plant the mint. I planted it in a pot and placed it in the same area, and it gave the benefits without the destructive behaviors. So the good can be the enemy of the best unless I really, really take the time to be attentive. Um, and then again, a little inattentiveness can look like just a literal failure to pay attention to details. So I used to use these spice blends before I came into Krishna consciousness, called Victoria Taylor's spice blends. And they're wonderful. She uses fresh ingredients. She does these wonderful blends. So you don't have to do it yourself. So I would get herbs de Provence and I would get this Moroccan spice blend to cook with. And then I came into Krishna consciousness. And now I have restrictions on what I can eat. And attention to detail means reading the ingredients. And lo and behold, in that wonderful Moroccan spice blend, there's onion and garlic powder. And in her herbs de Provence, there's little garlic flakes. And so those had to go. And it may be less convenient for me and a little bit more expensive for me to source organic herbs or grow them and dry them myself and make my own spice blends. But that's attentiveness. And a little inattentiveness could possibly mean that I'm making food and offering it with things that Krishna does not accept. So paying attention. And then again, also knowing what things actually mean. Decaffeinated does not mean no caffeine. It means a little caffeine. And a little caffeine is like a little yeast. It's still a mind-altering substance. So when I am going to someone's house to visit in my family or whatever, who perhaps only has decaf, I just bring my own tea. I bring it in my bag, and then I know that this is a beverage that I can drink that's been offered. And if they want to have some, wonderful. And if not, that's fine. I am responsible for my Bhakti Kripa. So just those sorts of things. And I can also say that for me, prior to coming to Krishna consciousness, I had been eating vegan for quite some time, but my husband was not eating vegan. And at that time, even with gloves on, I used to put, because even when I ate meat, I couldn't stand the touch of it. But even with gloves on, I would be preparing, and these are Srila Prabhupada's words, not mine. I would be preparing dishes from corpses, okay, and serving them to him. And when I came in, before I even got initiated, I really had to say, in the house, it's going to be vegan now. What you do outside of the house, I have no control over, but I'm not going to prepare dead flesh anymore. I don't eat it, and I'm not going to serve it. And so again, attention to detail. So the final point that I want to talk about is when Srila Prabhupada is talking about the leniency of the Lord and how the Lord is prepared to excuse his devotee. And what I equate that with in my life is that, when you're a parent, you can often be lenient with a child and also often go out of your way to protect the child from the consequences of their own choices. But when a child consistently makes the same mistake over and over again, a loving parent eventually has to let that child experience the consequences of their choices. And sometimes that lesson, as harsh as it may seem and as difficult as it can be for the parent to allow to happen, can prevent a lifetime of bad choices and damage to the child. And this is a really simple example of it. My sister had children before I did, and she came to visit me when my daughter was sort of toddling around. And this, forgive me, this was the 80s. We used to put babies in those little things with the wheels that now they know, it's not safe. And they'd be like wheeling around. And so when I was cooking, I'd have her in the kitchen with me, and she's wheeling around this little thing and just toddling and, talking in her little voice and whatever. And she would come towards the oven. And, the oven being, and I'd say, no, Lynn, hot to burn. And I'd like move her away. And then I'm cooking and she comes back and she's reaching. And I'd say, no. And to her, it become almost a game. And my sister was there observing this one day. And she said, Linda, my name, my Christian given name. She said, Linda, if you let her touch that oven door, which is really not hot enough to burn her, one time, just let her feel it one time. I guarantee you that oven will be off and cold and she will not touch it and she will say hot. And I was like, And she's like, no, trust me. Go ahead, try it. And I let her. And it wasn't hot enough to burn. It was just hot enough for her to go, oh, like that. And after that, from that day on, when we were in that kitchen, when she was a toddler, if she came anywhere near that oven, she would look at me and go, hot? And I would go, mm-hmm. And so she learned her lesson. And I would have been struggling with this baby, doing that back and forth for I don't know how long. And it was such a simple thing to allow her to feel the consequences of her actions and perhaps prevented her from going over to that stove when it really was hot enough to burn and seriously injuring herself. So finally, the last thing that is in this purport is that one must strongly adhere to the lotus feet of the Lord in devotional service, and then one's position is secure. And to me, that is simply to say that bhakti yoga is not a theory. We have to live it. Not really all that I have for class today, and hopefully I did not take up too much time. And please, any comments, questions, corrections, additions are welcome, because I am, as I said in the beginning, here to learn and here to listen.
All right, Krishna, go ahead.
Krishna.
Everybody wants to talk. I just want to express some thanks first, Mataji. Such a wonderful class and such personal insight into what we should be contemplating as a devotee as we're going about routine daily activities. How to be more attentive means thinking of Krishna, prioritizing services to Krishna over other things. And your example just means a lot to me. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Tarka Prabhu.
Mother Leela Kishori, I want to thank you for a very nice and thought-provoking class. I love your insights. Lots of very nice examples. It's done a very good job of illustrating the Prabhupada's points from this purport. I had a whole bunch of thoughts when I heard this purport, and we don't really have time to cover them all. But one thing that I thought about, which I often think about, is the manner in which you speak of inattentiveness, and the implications of a little inattentiveness can be quite great and far-reaching. There is a distinction between sinful activity and offensive activity. Offenses are more serious, they are more grave, and offenses in the chanting of the holy name are particularly serious because by chanting the holy name, you can gain release from the effect of sinful activities, but if you commit offenses to the holy name, there is no recourse. So avoiding offenses in the chanting of the holy name is very important. And I remember early in my Krishna consciousness, devotees would often note that in their own chanting, they found that many of the offenses to the chanting of the holy name seem to arise from inattentiveness while chanting. That if you are sufficiently attentive in your chanting, you can avoid many of the other offenses. So disobeying the orders of the spiritual master, very grave offense. That can be avoided by being properly attentive to hearing and chanting. Committing sinful activities on the strength of the holy name is another offense that can arise from inattention in chanting. Inattention itself is an offense in the chanting of the holy names. Tenth offense is do not have complete faith in the chanting of the holy names. To maintain material attachments, which Srila Prabhupada is talking about in this purport, even after understanding so many instructions on this matter, and then it is also offensive to be inattentive while chanting. So this business of clinging to material attachments is a serious obstacle, and it leads to all kinds of offenses which become a stumbling block for our progress. There is an example in the life of Srila Prabhupada, which illustrates his general principle in dealing with his family members and his disciples. His policy was pretty much the same. He had one young son, I don't recall which one it was, probably Vrindavan, um, who wanted to touch an electric fan. He was enamored, captivated by this spinning fan. Srila Prabhupada kept explaining to him, you don't want to touch the fan, you'll get hurt. But he was adamant. He just absolutely wanted to touch the fan. I want to touch the fan. I want to touch the fan. So Srila Prabhupada finally broke down. He turned the fan off so that it was just spinning slowly by inertia, not actually powered, and let his son touch the fan. So he got a good whack on his finger, and that cured him of his desire to touch the fan. Never again had an interest in touching the fan. But that manner of dealing with these excessive attachments to what is really harmful is the way that Srila Prabhupada managed his disciples in general. In this purport, we're hearing that it is Krishna's policy that if someone stubbornly continues to engage in some inappropriate manner, at some point, Krishna will not enable that individual by forgiving them again and again. He will let them suffer the repercussions. Otherwise, they'll go on indefinitely, and so you have to do something. So Srila Prabhupada would do that as well. He would save his disciples from all kinds of calamities, but sometimes he would allow them the space to make serious mistakes when they would persist. Sometimes he would just let them fall into Maya and suffer the consequences, because, as he explained, experience is sometimes the best teacher. Hearing is superior, but if you don't have sufficient intelligence to learn by hearing, then sometimes you have to go to the next phase, which is to experience practically. So, and there's some people that never learn under any circumstances, but experience often is an excellent teacher. My own mother had the same policy. Once I had used to have a lot of pets. I had one dog in particular, boxer black lab mix, who he had a convertible, Dodge convertible. Driving around with the roof down, the dog always wanted to jump out onto the highway. Couldn't stop him from doing this. He was just really, really wanted to jump onto the highway at 60 miles an hour. We had to hold him on a leash, and it was very troublesome. And at some point, my mother decided to just let him go, which shocked me to no end. I was hysterical, but the dog was hanging by the end of the leash, by his neck, bouncing off the quarter panel, inches away from the spinning tires and the pavement of the roadway. He was really upset, and he never attempted to jump out of the car ever again. Worked really, really well. So it's a practical way to manage stubborn unwillingness to maintain material attachments, even after understanding so many instructions on the matter. There is, I don't know if we have time for this discussion, but in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, there is a wonderful story, which, to be honest, it's wonderful and immensely purifying, but I also find it absolutely terrifying. It is, let me just take a look at my, having a lot of trouble with my computer. I picked up some kind of virus. It causes my pointer to freeze for like 2 minutes at a stretch, and I can't do anything. The manufacturer wants to wipe the whole drive, which will really put me in a pickle. Let's see.
Sarika Prabhu, while you're looking that up, can we just, I think there's someone here. I don't know who JV is. That's all I see on.
Yeah, go.
If they could go while you're looking that up, and then
Yeah.
you could read that to us, so then we have that as an ending. So JV, I see, that's what I see on on Zoom, whoever you are, I think you wanted to share something. If you would please unmute yourself and offer us what you wanted to.
Hare Krishna, this is John Vatsala Dasi, and I just wanted to say thank you and bring in the phrase, unless you already quoted it in the class and I didn't hear it, the weapons of mass distraction.
Vatsala, so delightful that you're here in class, and thank you. And please, if you want to go on a little bit more about what you that phrase, and please do. Karika Prabhu, did you find it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, this is the Antya-lila of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, the 9th chapter, starting around text 13 and continuing to the end of the chapter, which is at text 153. The story of Gopinath Pattanayaka, who was the son of Bhavananda Roy, who was, I believe, the brother of Ramananda Roy. And he got himself in trouble with the government. He was a tax collector, and he was spending some of the collections. And at some point, when he was supposed to submit the taxes to the king, he was unable to submit the full amount. Subsequently, he got into a tangle with the prince, the king's son, who made more trouble for him. And because he had been a little indiscreet in his dealings with the prince, he got the prince irritated. So the prince decided to teach him a lesson by raising him onto a changa, which is a device for killing a condemned person. It consists of a raised platform, and so the condemned person has to stand on that platform, and then beneath the platform there are stationary upright swords, and the individual is made to fall onto those swords. So the devotees were very upset about this, and they approached Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, begging him to please save Gopinath Pattanayaka, and Lord Chaitanya refused to do it. Long story, but absolutely worth a read. He ultimately was saved. Spoiler alert, he was saved by the king, because the king was a great devotee of Lord Chaitanya. But Lord Chaitanya was determined to teach a lesson to this particular individual. And one of the points that he makes clear in the chapter is that a devotee should be attentive to the matter of paying taxes. You're not absolved of these material obligations. You have to do these kinds of things. And if you fail to do it, he explains that Shastra says that it's an offense and you'll have to suffer. Anyway, wonderful story. I recommend reading it very, very highly. Terrifying story, because this, Gopinath Pattanayaka came within a hair's breadth of being killed. They had him on top of this device and were ready to throw him down. And only because the king intervened, he was saved. But a lot of very valuable instruction there. So it illustrates this policy of Krishna, teaching sometimes. Lord Chaitanya explained that this individual was a repeat offender. He kept doing this kind of thing, and so Lord Chaitanya subjected him to the terror of nearly being killed in a horrible way to cure him of this offense, and he absolutely was cured. He never did that again. But terrifying, absolutely terrifying. Sometimes the Lord can be very, very stern when he instructs devotees. He does, whatever is necessary to purify them and to save them from material existence. Sometimes the lessons are hard earned. Sometimes they're really difficult, but we make them necessary because we can be so stubborn in our attachment. So it's good to be aware of this fact that rather, if we don't want to subject ourselves to these types of terrors, then it's a good idea to avoid being stubbornly attached to material attachments that and then forcing the Lord to have to pry us loose in some terrible way. He'll do whatever is necessary. He'll do whatever will work best, and sometimes it's really unpleasant. Um, um, we used to say of Srila Prabhupada, sometimes he would get very heavy with his disciples. Um, Sometimes he would issue very severe and very stern chastisements. So we liken this to open heart surgery. That sometimes we have some disease of the heart that is so serious that nothing short of surgery will save the individual. And so sometimes the treatment is very severe, very intrusive, very invasive. But both the spiritual master and Krishna will do whatever is necessary. Might not be what we prefer, but we can we have the opportunity to exercise some control over how things progress. If we make the right decisions and progress properly by remaining attentive and detaching ourselves from the stumbling blocks, we won't have to undergo those very intrusive processes. So anyway, that's in a nutshell what I had to say. If we had the time, I would read the chapter because it's so nice. And if you hear it, frequently in Shastra there are benedictions offered for hearing, this or that story, and this is no exception to that rule. So by hearing this, there are you gain wonderful benefit. So I recommend it highly. That's the Antya Lila of Chaitanya Charitamrita, the 9th chapter, beginning around text 13 and following to the end of the chapter, which is around text 153. Really, really wonderful story. All right, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Janavatsala?
Hare Krishna, speaking of the benefits of hearing, I don't know if you already shared the Sanskrit to 240 that you quoted. There's no loss or diminution. So if not, I'll just recite it now because there's benefits to hearing the oral text.
Please
Very
recite.
powerful. Neha bhikramana shosti pratyavayo na vidyate svopam apyasya dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata. And I would appreciate if anyone has insight or remembrance about the reasons why it's important to hear the Sanskrit and not just the translations. I've heard Bhakti Tirtha Swami discuss like the effects, or something about the importance of the Sanskrit. I wonder if anybody remembers about that. Perhaps my dad, if he's on here too.
I know.
Hare Krishna, Dasya Prem.
David told me.
You're breaking up. Now you're muted.
In the Sanskrit because it's like sacred sound vibration. It's very purifying to hear.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
such wonderful realizations. Thank you all for participating in this class and for allowing me to offer something that I hope was useful, but also to be in your association and to learn at the same time. And just in closing, one of the things that, two, from John Vatsala and from Taraka Prabhu, that when we are chanting, and this is something that His Holiness Devan Rita Maharaj told me, we are in the actual presence of Krishna. He is non-different from his name. He is non-different from these readings. And you said, John Vatsala, reading in the Sanskrit, that this is the literary incarnation of Krishna. And so that when we are chanting, when we are reading Srimad Bhagavatam, when we are discussing Srimad Bhagavatam, we are in the presence of the absolute truth. And we need to be wholly attentive, because no one has ever been, even for the teeniest bit of time, in the presence of Krishna without being changed and cleansed in some way. And that is in existence in every religion across the board. It says that when Moses came down from Mount Sinai, his face was illuminated. We know that Muhammad went into the cave and came out a changed jiva. And Srila Prabhupada was in the belly of I'm 65, I can't imagine getting on a ship that's a cargo ship and going to India today in this day and time. And he had heart attacks and he was suffering, but he was so determined to carry out the instructions of his spiritual master and to bring this wonderful philosophy and science to the West, that he suffered all of that and got off that ship. And look at the mercy. Look at us here today. So yeah, attentiveness when we chant, when we pray, when we read, how dare we not? How dare we not? So that again is all I have. And I see some things in the chat. And yes, Yasudev, I will text you the name of that song. And again, just such a joy and such a privilege to be in the association of the devotees this morning. And if there are no other comments, questions, or concerns, then Rantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Hare Krishna. Have a beautiful Sunday, devotees.
Jai, Hare Krishna. Thank you for a wonderful class, Mother Leela Kishore, and wonderful comments also. And just wanted to add that about the sound vibration of Sanskrit. Srila Prabhupada was asked, I can't remember the full context, but there were children being brought to the classes, and someone was asking about that, like it was hard for them to kind of pay attention. And they were asking, the devotees were asking if the kids could have their own class and a shorter class, separate from the main class. And Prabhupada, he was okay with that, but he also mentioned that the sound vibration is significant, even though the child may not understand. But he was saying that the sound vibration is so powerful. It's acting on a subtle level beyond what the baby mind could comprehend. And I include us in that. We also are those babies that are being purified by the Sanskrit. And I bring this up because sometimes when I'm reading, I'll skip the Sanskrit. I'll just jump right to the English. But I'm learning from my daughter and from others that is just as significant, because each word has its power and its vibration. And by also studying the Sanskrit, you get a deeper meaning, as well as the subtle vibration. So just wanted to share that. Thanks again. Hare Krishna.
A question though, so if it's English isn't a sacred sound?
Say that again.
English isn't sacred sound? Okay, I'm gonna join in group puja, but I'll just listen to this answer later.
No, from my understanding, English is not a sacred sound. Devanagari, it's right there in the name. It's the language of the demigods. It's a divine language, and it's also the language that Krishna has given. So it's the most powerful. Not that we can't understand things in English. That's the language that we have. So yes, we use the English, and then we have the transliteration and so many other things to help us understand. But the importance of the Sanskrit sound vibration and sound vibration in general is so important. And Leela Kishore, you made a point earlier in the class speaking about what we're actually hearing, that association. It's much better to have divine association through Sanskrit than just some Grami Kata here or there, so yes, that's all. Yeah, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right. I think we are. Yeah, we're a little bit over time, not too much. And again, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Hare Bol. Srimad Bhagavatam. Ki Jai.